What's up, everybody? This is Jimmy Merriam with the Blazer Victory Podcast, and I am joined, as always, with one of my co-hosts, Darian Smith. Darian, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good, man. But you got somebody else right there.
That's right. I don't know if y'all see our man, the myth, the legend, the MVP, Mr. John Duncan. He's here.
Yes.
Yeah,
John's here. We
yeah.
we won't have John, talking as much today, so we know he's just, wanting to do that and lead the way. But each and every week, John, man, you're doing better and better. For those of you like, although John won't talk a lot, like in this episode, we're talking pre-show, and he's getting close now. He's getting close to doing this because y'all know y'all don't need me, leading this podcast. Anyways, we need our man John backdrop.
Hey, we still got John on IR.
Yeah.
He's you know how they still do it. He's still out. But just we're gonna keep on recovering. It's gonna upgrade to doubtful, then to questionable, and
Yes,
then available to podcast. Right. So,
that's right.
John, you lift our spirits so much. I was so
Mhm.
happy. Just seeing John when we first got. He's gonna do all the editing and everything. Like
Thank
it's getting
goodness.
closer. It's getting closer. I feel like we got our fans looking at a injury report, right? I'm like, y'all give it time. He's still rehabbing. So, man, thank you for joining us, bro. Thank you, man. And you are uplifting everybody's spirit in Blazer Nation. I get asked about you every single day.
Yes.
I got people that don't even know you that ask about you. They was like, oh, I saw him singing. I saw him doing this. I'm like, yeah, I've been keeping them. So people love you. We all love you, and I leave that for that.
Yeah. And that's a pretty nice hat, John, that you're wearing. So I think that kind of helps us transition to our sponsor for today's episode, which is Cahaba Brewing Company. We've been partnered with the Cahaba Brewing Company for a long time, and we know that, that's a special place to us. We've had lots of watch parties there, been able to kind of, get together with the listeners, with our friends and our families, and had a lot of great times. And so, if you haven't been to Cahaba Brewing Company recently, go check it out. So I was asking John because he's the official he knows everything Cahaba Brewing Company. So I was asking him pre-show, do they have the holiday, brew back or whatever? He said no, but I'm sure it's coming. And so that's one of my favorites. But if y'all haven't checked out Cahaba Brewing Company in a while, please do. They've been great partners for us at Blazer Victory, and we appreciate their support. So, all right, we are so excited. First and foremost, because John's here, but secondly, because today we're starting a series where we're going to begin the process of evaluating different coaching candidates for this UAB football search. Now, before we do that, we do want to share just a few words, if you will, regarding the existing staff of UAB football because we've got some really great guys on that staff that have been with UAB and in Birmingham for quite some time that have been great to us. And we're very appreciative of all that they've done for UAB. But I want to kind of hand the mic over to Darren a little bit because I know, Darren, you had a couple of words you want to share about these guys.
Yeah, yeah, and it was just I just wanted to make sure that they feel the love, right? A lot of times, you get in this space and we look at these guys like items, like just robots. These are human beings. They have kids, they have families, they have emotions. They want to win just as much, probably worse than we wanted them to win, right? So, um, I was really hoping that more everybody was hoping that Mort could get this job, but I think it's just a couple of things. It's the nature of the business, right? I think being able to talk to Mort, Trent, and all those guys, I think they'll tell you they understand how this business is not their first rodeo in this business. I mean Trent had to let people on the staff go that, probably felt some kind of way, but this is just the nature of the business and you got to make tough decisions. So, um, that being said, I think everybody knows that, I think more the audition period for the job probably has come and gone, especially after that North Texas game. I think it was a couple of things that I feel like, I feel like Mort is going to be a fantastic head coach. I just think he needs more seasoning. Um, at probably a smaller school so he can get his systems and his staff in place, get his consistency going. I think Mort is going to be a star. And I'm not just saying it because I like the guy. I really do believe that. I think he's going to be a star. So, and to the guys on that staff, I have real friends on that staff, like real friends. I know that like kids, I know their wives, um, that's why I really hurt for them too, right? Like I didn't want this to play out that way. I wanted them to be able to stay in Birmingham, but hopefully I know they know a lot of people and anything I can do to help, I will. And I hope they go out with a bang. I hope they beat South Florida, right? Go and beat Tulsa. I hope they win with a bang, and I hope that they are able to land in a great spot to grow.
Great, yeah, great words for this coaching staff. They've been good. They came by the Duncan residents after the Memphis big game, and that was really nice of them. And it's not just about them being nice. They've done some good stuff, UAB. It hasn't resulted in the wins that anybody would have wanted, but we appreciate their time in Birmingham up to this point. Now, with that being said, I'm just really excited. I love when we do stuff like this because as a UAB fan at heart, we're all UAB fans. It's this kind of stuff that we just don't always get. Like we don't always get this kind of coverage. And I'm just excited because I know that so many of you hopefully are going to enjoy this type of coverage. Because right now in this coaching search season, like everybody's wanting to get some information, some intel, what's going on, like how are things moving. And we're doing everything that we can, trust me, behind the scenes and trying to get that. But as I mentioned, we're going to start a coaching candidate series today. And while I'm talking, I'm going to try to share my screen because in case we have any issues getting that up. So I should be now sharing my screen. Do y'all see it?
And And
Oh,
Jimmy, yeah, we see it. And Jimmy, what I appreciate it is not just a BS like article written by somebody that hasn't watched UAB football or know anything about UAB and just popping up just to say something. This is like just to say something that's just disparaging or UAB should do this for the city of Birmingham, like some random article. Come on, man. This is real like nuts and bolts, like asking behind the scenes, looking at film of
hmm
other teams, like just asking around, asking whoever about coaches and their staff. So we're real and their rosters. So we're really trying to do all the work we can. We're not giving you any random fluff
Yeah.
just because. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah. So the first guy that we're going to talk about today is Mike Jacobs. Mike Jacobs is the current head coach at Mercer. And what the way that we're going to kind of do this series, if you will, is we're going to do a little bit of a profile of said candidate, what their background experiences are. And we're also going to look at some criteria that each of us are interested in when you think about what would be the right job fit for, the head coaching candidates here at UAB. What are some of those different areas that we'd like to emphasize and kind of talk through as we assess which of said candidates we believe the Blazer Victory podcast would be the best fit for this job. So, a little bit about Mike Jacobs, just from the top, is he's from Maumee, Ohio. If I said that wrong, apologies. Never heard of that until I was doing this research here. But he's from the state of Ohio. He was a former walk-on. He played offensive line at University, or excuse me, Ohio State. That was his alma mater back in 2001. He's been in the college coaching profession for 22 years. And he's got a cumulative head coaching record of 94 and 21. So I believe as we sit here today at Mercer, his record at Mercer is 20 and 4, but he does have additional stops at Notre Dame, not the Notre Dame, but Notre Dame of Ohio, as well as Lenore Ryan, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, out in North Carolina. And as I mentioned here at Mercer most recently, and just from a career kind of highlight, he's actually, as of last week, his team has secured an auto bid to the FCS playoffs, and he has had what I believe is the first time in school history there at Mercer, secured back-to-back SoCon championships. So he has things rolling at Mercer. But here's why I love to have Darian on the show because Darian's able to do a little bit of film. Now, we won't pretend that Darian's watched the whole season for Mercer, all right? But he's done more just quickly here, looking at some basic sets and looking at some highlights probably to kind of try to give us somewhat of an idea of what type of offensive and defensive philosophy this coach and his staff has. And this is something that we're going to do for everybody. So, again, just real high level. Darian, kind of what have you seen as you're looking at some of the highlights of Mercer?
Yeah, it's on offensively. Of course, they have an incredible freshman at quarterback, and I'm pretty sure we're going to dig into him more. Do we plan on digging into him more, just in detail, the quarterback, Jimmy?
We may, but right now actually may be a good time. Like if it doesn't come up, talk to the guys a little bit about the QB.
Okay, so let's talk about it. I believe I don't know if he leads the nation in passing yards. It might be FBS and FCS. It
I
might
think
be
it is.
both. I think it's something crazy like over 30 touchdowns and only like 5 interceptions.
Exactly. Yep.
I don't know if he's a redshirt freshman or a true freshman.
I think it's a true freshman. It didn't
I
specify redshirt.
I believe he's a true freshman. And so that's the place to start, just in case you didn't know. Oh, and he didn't play the first game. I didn't realize that. So that loss against Presbyterian, where Mercer lost 15-10, he was not the starter for that game. He took over after that game, which to me is also impressive because it shows that Mike can make some crucial changes. He went with a true freshman, and I think the quarterback, White, I believe is his name, he played the year prior. So I think it was cool to see a coach just say, "No, I see talent. I know talent. He's a true freshman. We're gonna roll with it." And you see how that paid off. So you can see that loss, and then you can see there's no more losses afterwards. And I think the freshman quarterback Atkinson had a lot to do with that, right? Um, the type of offense they run is a spread pro style. They do a lot of different. It's a lot of kind of what you see now, from as far as like formation wise. I think they attack in multiple ways a little bit more. I think they make you defend the whole field. They can go four wide, three wide, bunch formations out of the gun. They love to air it out, but they will run the ball. It's not, but I would say it's a little bit more pass than run, depending on the tenor of the game. Um, yeah, and it's just the quarterback himself, Atkinson is not a dual threat type of guy. He is a guy that loves to sit there and he loves to pick you apart with his arm. But the timing of this offense is a lot better. So you in our offense, I feel like our quarterbacks tend to get in a lot of trouble sometimes trying to keep plays alive, trying to, they get sacked, they get picked off. The timing is, it seems like bam, bam. It's like bam, may hold, may look, and it's out. Going downfield, up the seams, on the sides, dump off screens. It's very multiple in the looks that the quarterback is going to give you. But just not running, and that's okay if you're going to toss that many yards and that many touchdowns. I believe the running back, if I'm not mistaken, he's from Alabama.
Yeah, Gadsden, Alabama.
Yes, he's a good runner. I believe that is CJ Miller, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Good, nice runner. Um, I think it's a couple of pieces that you can get off of this offense if we're talking about transfer portal. If you was to, I think that quarterback Atkinson would be highly sought after. It's a couple of linemen that look pretty good out there, and a couple of them had size, and I think they had a good identity. And then defensively. I know I'm run down and then we can come back through whatever we want to. Defensively, it was a typical kind of 4-2 look with the star kind of like safety hybrid. It's kind of a lot of the same concepts that we have here, right? I think they're conservative. I don't think there's a lot of blitzes, exotic blitzes, or anything like that. But it feels as if they do have an identity on what they want to do, uh, per- um, to whatever game that they're playing. So, as far as like getting the being aggressive with your rush, like getting upfield hard, or trying to muck it up and kind of containing, they seem a lot more disciplined on what they want to do. And they have some stars on this defense as well. I think the defensive end number 0, I can't think of his name right now. I think he's a junior. He was pretty good. They had a linebacker that was pretty good. Like they got some pieces on defense that's pretty good. And I look forward to seeing them play this Saturday. They're gonna play Auburn. I just wanted to see how that defense responds. Since they don't play they don't play gimmicky on each side, or it's not a scheme. So, and we're going to talk about Drew Chronic. So, like, compare them to Chronic. The scheme of the option is what provides the, it can provide the advantage. It can provide being difficult to play against. Well, with Mike Jacobs, I think it's more of talent evaluation and identifying how to place players in certain areas because they're not going to do anything gimmicky or super schemy to beat you. They just line players up in certain positions, and it's all about um, just being on one page, and they run their stuff. So it's a lot of the same stuff that we do see now. It's just that he wins with it. He's won with it at at different stops. And it's a lot of what's going on. It's how Georgia plays, how Alabama plays. It's not anything gimmicky about it. So I think it'll be easy to retain. Not easy. I think it'll give you the ability to retain certain players on the squad already, right? Because you play a certain style that they'll be familiar with.
Darian, on this topic, I know it might be hard for you to see the screen because you're on your phone, I believe, but I'm sharing, hopefully, what you can see is the bio for Mike Jacobs on the Mercer website. And on the defensive note, this few sentences here would hopefully get some of you excited. Utilizing one of the nation's top defensive units that helped it bully its way through the league gauntlet and stake claim to its first conference championship in 51 season history of the program, Mercer paced all 126 FCS teams in five defensive statistical categories in 2024, including a school record for forced turnovers, 34, passes intercepted, 25, and rushing defense, only 71 rushing yards allowed per game in the 2024 season. So I don't have the statistics pulled up for the current season, 2025, but what I can tell you is that from a scoring defense, they're in the top 20. Scoring offense, they're in the top 10. And then they're ranked right now at somewhere between like 6 and 8 in the FCS. So highly successful, statistics there for Mike Jacobs and company.
And Jimmy, last year in the playoffs, when they made it to the playoffs, they played Rhode Island and defeated them 17-10. I think Devin Hightower, the starting
Hmm.
linebacker from my team now, was the starting linebacker for Rhode Island last year. So that's a source you can go to and say, hey man, how was it playing those guys?
Hmm.
And then they made it to the quarterfinals and ran into North Dakota State and lost 31-7. But it was a highly contested game until like the fourth quarter, and North Dakota State was able to kind of pull away. But um, I'm anxious to see them this. That was his first year in Mercer, right?
Yep.
I think he took over for Drew Chronic,
Yep.
and then so seeing them this year, I think it's two things that I take positively away from this is that seeing him being able to win at that level with someone else's roster, then seeing him being able to recruit these players like Atkinson and take the roster to the next level with the players that he want in and just still being able to mix that up with some of the holdovers from Chronic's roster. And they've just done it at a better march, like they've just been better this year. All right. So and now we get to see them against the Auburn. I'm really curious to see because I know Auburn is really gonna pressure him. And Atkinson is not a quarterback that does a lot of running. So it's going to be imperative to like really pay attention to see how they do when he's really pressured because you're going to face some pressure when you jump up a level.
Hmm.
And I just want to see how that defense responds. Then after that, we can see them in the playoffs as well. And I think that's going to be important to watch out for. So just seeing them get a really high competition, and we'll be able to see that for a couple of weeks in a row. I'm not saying that Mike is the guy, but I'm just saying it's something to pay attention to if you want to evaluate him.
Yeah, 100%. Now, this next we talked about profile, background, experience, if you will, and this is really the second part that we will evaluate for each of our candidates in this series, is we want to look at some of that important criteria, those points of emphasis that we think are important if you're checking the boxes, if you will, for someone that may be what we would deem fit for this head coaching position at UAB. What are some important elements? And so Something that we haven't shied away from is that, having head coaching experience is vital. So as you'll see here at the bottom of the screen, there's a million different criteria, but we've picked six just to kind of talk through and evaluate. FBS experience. So we've had someone recently who was a head coach, but it wasn't at college, right? And then you've got folks that might be head coach experience in D3, D2, FCS, whatever it is, or FBS. But FBS experience would be a plus. Experience with things like the transfer portal, revenue share, NIL, things of that sort in today's college landscape are important. And also looking at some criteria like what about staff, the ability to build a staff, staff continuity on top of that. That would be part of it, as well as you hear this concept of like, are they a good region fit? So again, we've got six criteria that we want to look at for each candidate, and I've explained kind of the importance of such. But let's talk about Mike Jacobs in particular. And so we'll start off with head coaching experience. As you can see here with Mike Jacobs, in my opinion, this is one of the biggest selling points of someone, a candidate like Mike, is he's got many years of head coaching experience at multiple stops. He's never had a losing season at any of his stops. He's coached at different levels and taken that foundation of what he's built at those respective schools, and he's continued that success at those different levels. So he knows how to run and administer a program. So it's not that a coordinator would not know how to do that, but he's proven that he knows how to do it at the levels that he has been part of. And so as a head coach, we know that there's a lot involved with being a head coach outside of just X's and O's, right? There's a whole lot of other stuff that go into it. So the management of a program is very important. And so with that being said, Darian, what are just your thoughts as we kind of start the series early? Like I know head coaching experience was very important for you as well, and kind of why do you feel that way?
I look at the history of UAB as one point and see that the guy that did it the best had plenty of head coaching experience, right? And it wasn't a coordinator or a talented coordinator. It was the guy that won as a head coach in Bill Clark. And I believe, and if you can help me out here, Jimmy, was Jacksonville State considered when Bill Clark was the coach there? And was it how many years was he the coach there? And what was the level then?
Yeah, I think he was the head coach for one season. You don't kill me if I'm wrong on this. I'm going back, but I think he was the head coach at Jacksonville State for one season. They were FCS, and then he took the UAB job thereafter.
Yeah, so I look I'm able to draw back on that. The only thing that I heard about Bill Clark at that time, or that I now hear about Bill, especially speaking to people, and I've heard stories, is that they talked about how he was just a good ball coach. That's a good ball coach, and he was verified. Uh, it's verified saying that by plenty of people that just was in tune with what he does and what he can do. So these are the same thing that I hear about Mike. They just say that he's just a good ball coach, right? And he's been in the profession for over 20 years. He's seasoned. He has his systems in place, and we'll talk about more of those qualities, but he has an identity, and I feel like as a head coach doing it at being resourceful, having to do it at smaller levels, identify talent, doing more with less. I think it's all shown in his career, and that's why I give a huge plus to Mike Jacobs, not only because what he has done, but what has worked at UAB in the past.
Yes. Let's talk about criteria number two, FBS experience. So this is a category you look here for Mike Jacobs that he hasn't been at the FBS level, I don't believe, in any capacity, meaning assistant or coordinator or analyst, or, he's worked his way up. And so a gig like UAB would be his first dealings with FBS. And so, as we compare candidates, we're going to compare candidates, in the future of those that have not been a head coach but that are at the FBS level or spent a lot of time at the FBS level working their way up. And so I think this is an interesting element that our listeners will maybe be a little split on is kind of what's more important in your eyes? Is it someone that has worked up as a head coach at lower levels and is looking to kind of enter FBS for the first time? Or is it someone that's worked their way up from the bottom at the FBS level, analyst, a grad assistant and analyst and position coach and coordinator, even if you argue G6 to P4, like all the way up, we'll talk about someone like that. Which one would be a better fit? And, that'll be a part of the larger assessment. But that's why we have FBS on here because the reality is, as we'll talk about in the next couple of sections here, is that there is a difference in talent and there is a difference in budgets and there is a difference in just, roster sizes, right? Like the job just gets bigger at FBS. And so, how will that correlate? And so Mike Jacobs hasn't spent time in FBS. That obviously does not make him unqualified for the position, but I think it was fair, Darian, to at least call that component out.
Yes, and we do have some people that do call that is important to them. A couple of fans have pointed that out and said, "Hey, man, what about some coaches that have won and are winning at this level? You know, think of Missouri State head coach or Kennesaw State. It's a couple of teams that you can think of that are doing well, that have sitting FBS coaches and wondering why we don't, Western Kentucky, right, with Hilton. Um, and I can understand that argument because you want a coach that's familiar with the scale of the job and being able to manage that. So I think it's a fair point to put that as a negative mark on him. With that being said, again, I go back to the greatest football coach in UAB football history, right? And he had one season as the head coach at Jacksonville State. So to me, I'm like, I do. If you show that you can do it at the smaller levels and as you scale up to the bigger levels, if you show that you can win and you have that talent, I think you can do that at UAB. That's the type of job I think that UAB is right now. Now, if Mike Jacobs come in and he just raises his profile to where we can pick off a sitting, we can become a top G6 team, and then let's say who can do that, a Memphis or a Tulane. I feel like they
Mhm.
can pick off a coach. They done it. Memphis took some of our players, right? I get it,
Mhm.
because they raised the profile of their job. I think that we have to raise our profile to be able to pick off a sitting FBS D1, and not just like of any conference. I'm talking about of a Conference USA or another American or maybe a Mountain West if we wanted to. So that's my only argument for that or against it.
Right. Let's talk about component or criteria number three, which is transfer portal. And, I don't know what everyone's knowledge is. I won't pretend to be an expert in FCS football, but some people may have the impression that, well, you're not necessarily dealing with the transfer portal at the FCS level. And I would push back on that because they're losing talent every year. There are players on UAB's roster this year, right, that are coming from lower levels. And when you look at Mercer's roster this year, which I think I have that pulled up and we can do, I had it, I'll do that right now. What you're going to find is that Mercer is going to have quite a few players from other levels. So you see here Florida Atlantic, Georgia State, Nebraska, Miami of Ohio, West Virginia, Liberty, Austin Peay, Samford, Coastal Carolina, Marshall. Um, UTEP, Charlotte, Army, Coastal, Duke. So, anyways, y'all get the point. You also see there's quite a few players from Lenore Ryan, which we'll talk about maybe later. Just the concept that like they probably followed him, to Mercer, and hopefully there would be an element of player acquisition that would follow him to his next stop, that being an opportunity like UAB. But my point is, and I share this because he is dealing with, and his staff is dealing with the transfer portal at the FCS level. They're losing talent and they're having to replace it. And where are they going? They're replacing it from maybe people coming down. So those are concepts that we already understand at UAB. So, if there's an impression that, and maybe it's not as much, I don't know, I'm not an expert, but Darian, I think it's pretty obvious, wouldn't you say, that from a transfer portal perspective, this is something that Mike Jacobs and the Mercer staff are dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, they deal with it. As we can see with certain schools that we get, we've gotten certain players from the SWAC. What you see is if you win and if you're a productive player, especially on a lower level, that's gonna open up avenues for you. And you're gonna have so if you're a Mercer or if you're a Chattanooga or any of these type of teams, if you're at Alabama State, Alabama A&M, and you have players that do well, more than likely they're gonna get picked off by maybe a G6 team. And guess what? They come here, then they get picked off again. Everybody has to deal with the transfer portal, no matter what level you're on. And so again, I think you pointing that out, that's just good because that has been an argument, hearing some people saying like, well, you don't deal with it. Yes, you do. You gotta replenish, you gotta restock, and you gotta retain. You gotta be able to know how to retain certain players and balance your budget, in which that may be another discussion, the budget of it, the budget portion of it. But players have to want to play for you, right? They have to want to believe in what you're doing. And with him just being able to win and identify talent and win again when you lose players, that's very, very important. He proved that he can do that, right? Especially this year. He did it better than his first year. So um I think he should get a plus as you have it. You have the check mark for a transfer portal.
Perfect. Yeah, and this might be a good opportunity. Again, we're behind the scenes doing the research here. Now, I may or may not have gone back and looked at some depth charts here, and Mercer has four out of their five offensive linemen starters have eligibility remaining, and I think it was the total offense and defense, 19 of 22 starters have eligibility remaining. So they got three seniors on that roster. This is not a team that, from what I can see, that was built for like a one and done. Like this is a program where he has taken a very good program over from Drew Cronick, who's another candidate, and just grown it. So there's a lot of opportunity for guys. There's a lot of players, whether Mike Jacobs ends up at a UAB or elsewhere, or hell, even if Mike Jacobs stays at Mercer, there's probably at least a handful, if not more, of his guys that are going to be promoted to the G6 level for sure. Let's talk a little bit about criteria number four, which is rev share and NIL. I put a minus here, but in full transparency, maybe that should be a question mark. I'm making an assumption here. At the FCS level, I don't know. I can't tell you right now if they're dealing with rev share, how that applies to them and NIL. What I would envision is that if they do have NIL being part of the equation, that it's not, a big thing. It's so I don't know. So I mean, y'all push back on that, if you know more than me. But just from FBS budget, operating budget, and the number of deals and the rev share component with the administration putting money back into the programs, I'm not sure how much of that is a part of FCS football. But for now, until I'm told otherwise, I just put that as more of like an area of opportunity, but probably should be more of a question mark. Do you think that's fair, Darian?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would have no idea on this. I would say probably it's probably a knock compared to other candidates, right? That may be somewhat familiar with this. And, maybe we need a GM or something like
Yeah.
that to help manage. So I can see that.
Right. So let's talk about criteria number five, and this is going to be a good one. So this is something that we'd like to envision is you can have a great head coach candidate, and we've got several of them. But a question is kind of what type of staff are they going to be able to build and surround themselves with? And so you're going to have each of these guys are interviewing for the UAB job. I'm sure they're presenting themselves where they're saying, hey, if I get the job, this is how I would envision my staff. Here's who it would consist of. I'm sure that's a part of it. But some of them were a little bit more easy for us that aren't in the know to visualize it. And I would give you an example here with Mike Jacobs is that I have a check mark next to staff because if you were to look at, and we will, some of his staff at Mercer, you're going to see really quick that these guys, for the most part, have followed Mike Jacobs from Notre Dame, Ohio to Lenoir-Rhyne to
Mm.
Mercer. So they are growing side by side with Mike Jacobs. So I think it's a great sign they're sticking with him because they've been successful, right? So those guys, just like a Mike Jacobs, will probably get an opportunity to go elsewhere and do different things. They're sticking with Mike Jacobs and they're growing and developing as well. And you think about just running the day-to-day operations, Darian, how much of a plus does it have to be when you are making a jump? Because it is a jump from FCS to FBS. And we could tie this back to the staff, how it was built when it first came to UAB under the previous regime. But how important is it that you've got that staff continuity when you are making that type of jump?
It's super important. I mean, I think Trent and company, they talked about this. They talked about the importance of they lost so many coaches over the years that they've been here. They've lost so many coaches. And they talked about how tough it can be just with that continuity, getting on the same page and the systems. I think it's important. It's like you have to. It's kind of put plug and play. They have made jumps from Lenore Ryan, from Notre Dame to Lenore Ryan to Mercer with that same staff in place, and I think that's enabled him to win automatically because you have those systems in place that you can just turn to right there. All you do is apply it at a bigger scale. Of course, there are going to be things at different locations that you're going to have to tweak, but having been there with guys for so long, they probably are. The chemistry is great. You know, everybody is aligned from the top down. You just cannot replace that. And having it, and it just when we talk about identity, you're not looking to have to find identity. You know what your identity is. You know what it is that you're looking for. Every time we saw Bill Clark go out there with that offense and that defense, we knew what we were going to get. And I feel like these 3 years, that's been missing. I thought we were one thing, um, and then I thought we were another thing, and then I thought we was another thing this year. It's like the identity just was kind of like we was just trying to find it. But when you have this continuity right here, man, we don't have to find it. He knows what he's looking for. And then it's easy to just believe and trust in that vision, which it makes it so much easier to identify talent. So you don't have to just kind of throw money at players that are good. Yeah, you can have you it's good to have good players, but if they don't fit what you need, then you're wasting precious money on somebody that's kind of like, what do we do with him?
Right.
Right? I can have a good boxer, but if I put him in the UFC, what was the point? You know, like that's not a cage fighter, that's a prize fighter. Or is that hold on. Yeah, you get the point. I almost confused myself right there. But yeah, so you just don't you I think at this level, talent identification and having it being able to apply that to your identity is super important because you have to be resourceful. You cannot waste whatever budget you have, you cannot waste it. You have to be able to plan it out meticulously. So, and I think with the staff continuity that they have and knowing each other offensively and defensively, that they'll be able to accomplish that.
All right, guys, we got one more criteria here, region fit. So you're going to hear uh, being familiar with the region is going to be important. Why is that important? You think about pipelines, recruiting, going into high schools, knowing the high school coaches, the politics behind the state, whatever, just knowing where to go and how to get there. Something that we love to see is when UAB is able to staff and, have players from the state of Alabama. And so the question is, are these candidates familiar with the Southeast region, with the pipeline where you hear about 500, what is it, 500-mile radius you hear in the recruiting, right? So that's something that we're going to look at as well. And with Mike Jacobs, me and Darian went back and forth on this because I think it can be a little deceiving. If you look here at the top of the screen, this guy's from, Northwest Ohio and was in Ohio, and then he spent some time in North Carolina, just most recently, last couple of years in Georgia. So you might look at this guy as a Midwest guy, and he is historically a Midwest guy. However, he did spend those years in North Carolina and then most recently in Georgia. And on his roster, he's got at least a handful of players from Alabama, including his leading rusher. So his staff is recruiting in this footprint. I think I don't remember. I think he's in Macon, Georgia. It's probably what 2.5 hours from Birmingham. He's not that far, so he's familiar with the area. He's only been there for 2 years, but nonetheless, I think it's fair to give Mike Jacobs a check mark on this because he is literally coaching like 2.5 hours from here, right? So, just Darian, real quick, any just general thoughts on region fit, where that kind of how much you equate that into this search, and then just your argument, which you had a good one as it relates to why you would say yes for region fit for Mike Jacobs.
Yeah, I would say yes for reason fit because he's 2.5 hours away. He's winning
Hmm
2.5 hours away, and then some of those players that's on that winning roster that he has are from Alabama, like his running back, right? I think that is a fair argument, and I think that if you he's shown the ability to go into high schools. I think being at that level, right? You can't depend being at the levels that he has he has navigated in the FCS and the way he's worked his way up. You can't depend on transfers just being studs. That's not
hmm
you don't go out and just buy a guy.
Yeah.
You have to go out and you have to identify high school talent, right? And just seeing he's done it with his quarterback and he's made him like the best player in the FCS. I don't know that. Let me stop. I don't know if he's the best player in the FCS, but
He's got the
and
most passing yards and
yeah,
touchdowns. So,
and his touchdown to interception ratio is very good. Like,
hmm
but I don't know if he's the best. I don't watch enough FCS football to play. There's probably some running back and receiver out there that's amazing. Probably some offensive lineman. So let me not say that, but he's one of the best players straight
hmm
out of high school. Um, he knows how to identify talent, and I'm pretty sure he knows the region. I saw one interview where he was talking about Montgomery, Alabama, and what it's like to play down there, and um, so he's very familiar with Alabama, and I believe that with him being a resourceful head coach, it is my belief. Now, this is me projecting, especially with him, coaching at Mercer. Um, it is my belief that he would go into high schools and recruit at a high level and he can develop those relationships. I know that's been a big thing with UAB. I work out with a high school coach that's a defensive coordinator. Not I don't he works out in my gym with me. Not with me, but at the same time that I work out. And I've talked to him before and he's asked about UAB and he's talked about a lot. And this is a very good winning team. Um and he was like, man, we got so many players that could go to UAB and they don't really show up. But I've heard that from a lot of high school coaches. Now, I don't know if that's because, players kind of wasted UAB's time. I'm not really sure, but I know I've heard that from coaches, right? I know some of those same coaches were saying that when Bill was here, and I just can't believe that Bill was ignoring some coach, and I just don't believe that. Some coaches are just trying to advocate for their school, but I do think there's something to it, and I think regionally, I would like to believe that Mike would understand the amount of talent that we have um, here in Alabama, and that he has proven that he will not only recruit high school kids, but play them and put them in a successful
hmm
position. So it doesn't matter if we have a true freshman starting somewhere, I wouldn't care because I'm like, they know what they're doing. You
hmm
know, just look at what he did with Brady Atkinson. So yeah, I put it as a plus because of not only his past of being resourceful, but what he's doing currently with players from this area.
Love it. All right, guys. So here's what I want to do next. I think we're probably 30 or so minutes in. Don't have a ticker here, but I've got a few rapid fire questions. So maybe spend like a minute or two on each of these questions, and we'll wrap this up. And these are questions that we're going to ask about everybody in this search. And so the first thing I want to just kind of toss out there is we talked on the front end about like kind of like intel. We're not going to share any crazy intel on here. Not that we really even have it. But for those of you that are on the Blazer Victory Patreon feed. We appreciate y'all so much. The Blazer Victory Patreon chat. We got a lot more people than just us that's trying to, read the tea leaves and, try to figure out what's going on. So we'll be dropping some stuff continuing on the Patreon feed as well. But shout out to you guys. But just ultimately, as it relates to this search, Darian and I have both heard from separate people. I can absolutely confirm that Mike Jacobs and, those in the search have spoken with one another. And, that makes sense. So I believe that there is mutual interest. I don't know where that conversation went. I don't know how that conversation, again, how it went. I don't know how it progressed. I don't know if there's going to be more conversations, but I do believe that there at least was a preliminary conversation between those in the search at UAB and Mike Jacobs. Darren, are you hearing anything differently or anything you want to share on that?
Yeah, I'm hearing the same thing, and I just like to repeat what you said as far as like where did that conversation go? It's like it can be a lot of innuendo. It's like some people say this, some people say that, but you do know that there's interest, some level of mutual interest. I cannot tell you and sit here with a straight face and tell you like there's a lot of interest, or I can read tea leaves and kind of say, I mean, there seems to be some smoke there, but there's interest. Let's just keep it there.
Yeah. All right. So, next question here, real quick. I think my screen stopped sharing. I think we're back. Is my screen still sharing or no? Yeah. All right.
Yeah, it's still sharing.
Okay, so let's talk about I need to be fair with myself, and just be like playing devil's advocate. What would be reservations about this candidate, that being Mike Jacobs? What would maybe be the argument against hiring Mike Jacobs? I'll go first. Ultimately for me, it would be criteria number two and criteria number four, which is the lack of FBS experience at this level and, understanding that it's a jump. And for those that want to argue that it's too big of a jump, we had someone make the jump from high school head coach to Division One FBS coach in our last search. Big leap and that didn't work out. Now we have somebody potentially making the leap from FCS to FBS, which is not quite the same leap. But then just the whole budgeting and the dealing with, because you got the transfer portal, but and UAB is not going to be buying players either, at least not now in the present state of where UAB football stands and the whole hierarchy of things. But it's probably just a little bit more of like you're rolling out that money into the locker room, into the equation, right? So if there's not a lot of money in the conversation at the FCS level, all of a sudden your quarterback's making how much, and your quarterback knows that your running back is making this, and the guy that you're considering bringing in is demanding this, and it
Good
just becomes
point.
a lot more about money. So it's like, that would be like if you don't have a lot of experience with that, when you could argue a coordinator and other jobs like, oh, we know how to have these money conversations with these players, with these kids, because we have it all the time. We know what the deal is when they call and they say like, hey, what's the NIL, or what is my compensation? And so I'm not saying that the man can't do the job. In fact, I think he can. But if I'm making an argument against it, it would be that. Darian, what say you?
That was a great point. Mine would be, he coached his first head coaching gig was at Notre Dame of Ohio. Then he went to Lenoir Rhyne behind Drew Cronick. And then he went to Mercer from Lenoir Rhyne behind Drew Cronick. Drew Cronick won at Lenoir Rhyne. You can say,
Hmm.
well, he inherited that roster. Drew Cronick won at Mercer. You can say that Mike Jacobs was again benefited had the benefit of inheriting another great roster built by Drew Cronick, right? And that can be a fair argument against him and saying, hey, he was just in a beneficial position, and he was able to take advantage of that. So that would be my biggest if I was playing devil's advocate. That is one question that I would, or one thing that I would bring to Mike Jacobs and wonder how he would respond is that you took over good rosters. You didn't have to build a good roster. How do you feel about that?
How do you, speaking about feelings, just we talk to fans like a good bit, right? We mentioned the Patreon. We see all this our listeners out, and we talk to a lot of folks. Going to basketball games, having people come up, hey, what's going on? When do you think he's going in this direction, that direction? Like, when do you think they're going to make a decision? Well, so we talk to a lot of fans. So I like to think that we've got a good pulse. I won't pretend that we've got all the money maker, right? We don't know what the guys with a lot of money maybe think. But for just the average fan, I want to talk a little bit about like how do we assess like the fan approval of this candidate? We've done some polls on the Patreon. Just to disclose the results of that, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Mike Jacobs was the clear. There was a close second, which we'll probably do on our next coaching, episode, if you will, candidate. But Mike Jacobs did win the majority of that poll as it relates to which coach candidate would excite you the most. But a lot of people I talked to from the get-go, and we could probably spend a lot of time about just talking about the origin of Mike Jacobs and the UAB conversation there. And it started with a dream, and it was just like it just gone from there. But anyways, I would assess the fan approval of Mike Jacobs if you're a decision maker and you're listening to this podcast and you're like, what do the fans think about this? I would argue that the general fan consensus is very positive, and they're doing their own research, which I love, by the way. We haven't done a lot of promotion. We've been clear about how we feel about the candidates in the search. I think we've been fair, but we haven't come on here every week and been like, we need to hire this man. I think a lot of people have done their own research, and I would argue that the fan approval is pretty high, generally speaking. Would you agree, Darian?
I would agree. You can look at the Twitter sphere, right? And you can look, and I think that's where the love comes from, is doing your own research. And when you start doing your own research, it reminds you of a Bill Clark, right? Just it can put you in that same sense of kind of that same journey. The journey seems the same. Just a guy that's a ball knower, just a uh, just a ball knower, a winning coach, head coach. That I feel like if you give him a bigger opportunity, he's gonna do nothing but good things with it. You're right. Like so he's just one of those guys, and I feel like Bill was one of those guys. So that is why I think the fans are very excited because it didn't start that way. And once they started looking, they say, hey, this Mercer guy, like this Mike guy. So now I feel like it has evolved to the point where you see multiple fans online saying, "Check out Mercer. They play Auburn this weekend.
Yeah.
It'll be a good look." You seeing a lot of people go to the Mercer page and they're retweeting back-to-back SoCon champs.
Hmm.
You're seeing them like, oh, this guy is a good coach. Look at that
Hmm.
quarterback. Oh, look at these defensive awards that they're getting. So I think the fans would be excited about it because it's a intelligent fan base. You
That's
can't you
right.
can't you can't bluff us with BS articles, fluff articles. No, no, we really do our research. We have to be resourceful here. We don't get a lot of money. You can't just throw money at us. So resourceful, intelligent fan base.
This will be maybe a quick one, Darren. We touched base on like areas of opportunity potentially is like how would you evaluate or analyze like the risk of this hire? Kind of a difficult question for me because um, every coaching hire, no matter who you hire, there's risk. Just like in generally speaking, if we're hiring folks to work, we own a small business, we're hiring someone, we could look at all these boxes being checked. You could be told whatever you're going to be told in the interview process, do your background search and all that stuff, and you could think you're making the best hire in the world, and it doesn't work out for whatever reason. And I think it's a Cover Three podcast. One of the guys on there jokes like, about that. Like, I think it's a great hire, but who the hell knows if it's going to work out, right? So there's
Right.
that part of it. But when I look at like when I think about the risk, I really do. Out of all the stuff, I guess I would say the biggest risk is just maybe like the talent difference, and I don't watch enough FCS football to know. And I think that's, as I think about this search, and I won't go too far down this rabbit hole, but yes, South Florida, Memphis, Tulane, forgive me if I'm forgetting folks, Navy to some degree as well, North Texas this year, like the cream of the crop, like in the American Conference, like they're doing really well. But then I think you've got a lot of, and we talked about this in pre-show or preseason shows, like it's really there's not a ton of separation, so it's like are we comparing ourselves right now to Memphis, Tulane, and South Florida, or are we looking at the scope of like, hey, can we have someone come in here in year one and get us to a 5-5 record through 10 games like the guy who left Davidson and went to Rice? Is that a lot more realistic? And I think Mike Jacobs, the combination of his evolution to all the different levels, and his success, and with some of maybe the player acquisition that we could, take from like Mercer to the degree that that's possible and just his staff continuity. I think a lot of those things limit the risk here to where I view this as of the ones we're going to talk about is potentially the least, like one of the least risky. But I think that's, again, maybe I didn't explain that as well as I'd like to, Darian, but like from a risk assessment, like how risky do you think, like just generally speaking, hiring somebody from the FCS level to FBS is going to be?
Yeah, he's safe. He is if you're a dad and your daughter is starting to date and then it's like, hey, this is a nice guy. I know you know his parents, right?
That's a
You've
great
seen
visual, yeah.
yeah, you've seen them grow up and you trust that kid, but like this is a good kid, so I'm
Yeah.
not even mad at this. So yeah, like I mean, I believe he has the systems, he has the continuity, he has a roster, players show that they will follow him. He's shown that he can identify talent. He's shown that he can be resourceful at the level he's been afforded to coach at, right? So all you can do is take at least he has done it. All you can do is project it here. That's with any coaching. Like you're gonna have to do a level of projection. Like if people knew exactly what they were gonna get, I mean, I think everybody would have winning seasons, right? But
Amen.
so
Yeah.
you just project as best you can. So when I look at it in totality and I do my projection, I see him as probably the safest candidate because of what he's doing, and especially from the candidates that we are hearing that we're going to get.
Yes.
You know, if
Yes.
we were in the freaking running for Lane Kiffin or James Franklin, of course,
Hmm.
but we have to do a little bit more projection and be a little bit more resourceful here. And I think he's the most risk adverse, um, just based off what you can see now.
All right, for all three of us, John, you can give us a sign, but for where would you rank this candidate today being, was it Wednesday, November the 19th? On your personal candidate list, where do you have this candidate listed? For me, it's number one. I have Mike Jacobs right now today listed as number one. That's who I wish for UAB Athletics to hire as it relates to the candidates that we're going to talk about. And it could be the hire could be someone that we're not even talking about. Who knows? That's how coaching searches work, right? But of the guys that we're going to talk about and highlight, Mike Jacobs today is number one for me. Darian, where does he rank on your personal list?
I think personally, after doing all the research, he's number one for me as well. Because of I believe he's a floor. He's Trent talked about raising the floor so much, like we have to raise our floor. I project Mike Jacobs to be a built-in floor raiser. But also, why I have him over some other candidates, I believe that he is a ceiling raiser as well because he's shown what he can do. He's back-to-back SoCon champs. Um, and this is like no this. I don't Drew Cronick didn't do that. Drew Cronick built the roster. So it could be an argument saying that, hey, if he was there another year, he was gonna do that. Hey, again, I am projecting. I see a guy that went to a school, took a roster, took over, they went to a championship, got into the playoffs, and then showed that, oh, I can do it again with a true freshman quarterback. So not only do I have a safe floor that I am going to win, a la Bill Clark, that floor, that I can be a ceiling top raiser. I can go back to back championships. We can go to playoffs. We can have a shot. We can be in North Texas. North Texas was with us last year. We was bottom dwellers. North Texas would probably have a chance to go to the freaking college football playoffs. Think about that. Think about that. I think I project. I'm saying all of these words to say just in case we do hire the man and he win one game, right? Like that is totally within the realm of possibilities. That's how, but all we can do is project the best we can. But I project he has that type of ceiling, like in 2, 3, 4 years, maybe, that we could be in that mix. And that's all you want. North Texas was able to hire their guy for their program. They gave them that chance. I'm not, I just don't want to be a 6, 7 win program. Like I know that I want it right now, but
Yeah.
after a while, that gets mundane. You kind of like we're gonna beat up on teams that or we're gonna beat teams that we know we're supposed to win against, and we're gonna lose against the teams that we're projected to lose against. That's all that's showing me, and I'm like, after a while, it's kind of like being with a good girl that's just kind of like, I don't know what's going on with the love. Like the love is just missing. Like we're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. No, you need that. Give me give me that year where it's like, wow, like we took it up a notch. We had a freaking baby. We did something because we're in love. Like I want to have that feeling. That's a feeling that we was able to experience some with Bill Clark. The beating BYU, the winning the championships. I want more. I want to beat the Arkansas and have a shot to scare Georgia. I want to feel special. I want to feel, and this fan base deserves it. We've been crapped on by Alabama fans. Like we have taken, we get crapped on by Memphis fans, right? People just talk about us. Um, you get a random AL.com article from people talking about, oh, it's just a whole, but Alabama
Mhm.
State fans was trying. I'm like, where y'all come from? How y'all gonna, like so. I'm sorry, I know I had got in my bag for a little bit right there, but we just want our moment in the sun. And I really want a coach that can not only stabilize, and I believe that he would be a stabilizer, and we really need that. But I think he's a coach that can deliver us to that one moment, like, oh, they beat Miami. Like, wow, this is a special year. We haven't had that. We have not had that. When we beat BYU, it was in the bowl. And I can't even tell you, I don't know if BYU cared or not, honestly, because they probably were disappointed. But let's say we played them week 9, like like deep in, and they had playoff aspirations. If we beat them, then it's different. The conversation is different. I want a team that can do something like that. You know, we beat who we got on the schedule. We can go to Illinois and
Yeah.
we can win that game. Wouldn't that be special for us? That's the
Mhm.
Big Ten team. So I just really want us to have that. We're gonna have it one day, and I think Mike can do
John, give us a visual. What you got a hand symbol? Like, where's he
it.
ranking your list? I know. I think John's going to be different from. He's not going to be number one, right?
One more one.
Number one. Did we
Oh!
convince you on this show, or did you change
Yes.
your mind before? Oh my gosh, let's go. Let's freaking go. Okay, so getting excited here. All right, last question that I'll propose, and we'll hop off this episode is okay, final assessment. So here, looking at this final question is Mike Jacobs would be a good hire for UAB because we've talked about a lot about the because. I'm gonna try to keep my 30-second elevator pitch. Winner. Like he's won everywhere he's been. He's including multiple levels. He is, to Darian's point, close at Mercer vicinity wise. So he's gone outside of his quote unquote original, region. And he's recruited high school and also has dealt with the transfer portal already. I do believe that he would be able to bring some player acquisition with him. Not that we're going to be Mercer 2.0, at UAB at the FBS level, but I think that he could because you can tell he's got a good culture. And speaking of that, staff continuity. Like again, you're bringing in now Mercer. If he were to leave, they could replace him with one of their coordinators, and that kind of changed the game. But think about the plug and play aspect of shifting. In the project world, they call things lift and shift. And so you're bringing in offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, tight ends coach, recruiting court. Like you're bringing in that staff potentially to UAB that has seen so much success, and your vibes matter in the recruiting world. And I know it's at a different level, but they're coming in with the expectation to win. I know it's a jump, and this may not work out because any hire may not work out, but I love the head coaching experience. I love the proven record of success. The culture speaks to me because of the staff continuity. I think you could pick off a couple of their players to just to bring that culture with him to kind of help set the standard. High floor. I don't know if I see as much right now because I'm too much of a realist, like that high ceiling. I'm a dreamer, so I'd love for that to happen. But I see a high floor and I just see a ball coach. I see he's not going to give you much in these conversations, but he's just a ball coach, and that excites me. Darian, what say you?
Um, Identity, um, risk adverse, continuity, and the fact that, and I love to throw this fact around, I would never not throw it around at this point. That why I feel like he could be a good coach because the last coach that I wanted was Kurt Signetti.
Mm-hmm.
And they can speak to you. I was like, man, we need that guy when he was at JMU. He's just like a ball knower, ball coach. It's one of those, he fits that same profile. Now that I kind of feel that same feeling about Mike, I'm like, no, I'm not shying away from my good. Like, and I feel so emboldened by that. So with that, knowing that having that past and just knowing the identity he brings, the continuity, the resourcefulness,
Yeah.
the doing more with less that he brings. So he understands that aspect of it all. It kind of puts me at ease. Knowing that he does, I feel like he will have a floor, and I can see the vision of him if it does work out that way. I can see a vision where he has a high ceiling. Look, and I can talk about that's probably why he ahead of another candidate that we have.
Would you will your mind change at all if Mercer loses 70-3 on Saturday at Auburn? Will you?
No, no, like hey, listen, you can have a great seventh grade team, but most likely if you go against a varsity team with a seventh grade team, no matter how good and well coached that team is, you're just gonna get beat, right? Like it's just
I'm saying
that's
that for our listeners. I can see some we're sitting here next week and it's like, well, Mercer just lost 70-3, and it's like, well, no crap, they lost. What would this UAB team lose? And Auburn's not even that good, but they got Cam Coleman, their roster size and their revenue sharing and everything. Like that is a jump
yeah.
in its entirety. But okay,
I, re
before
I
we leave,
remember I remember when we played Florida and we couldn't score, but they couldn't score against us. You can tell they was just trying things, and then they had Chris Rainey and Jeff Dimps, and they said, "Screw it, we're from the score." They are world class sprinters. You aren't fast enough, and
yeah.
they just started running sweeps, literally. And it ain't that we were out of position or nothing. They just made us out of position, right? They just ran past us. So, like, that's all to say is like sometimes you could just have somebody that's just more talented. Cam Coleman is going to be more talented than anybody on that field. And if you get into a jam to where the game is a little close for your comfort, you can say, I'm going to throw a jump ball, and you
Mhm.
aren't going to be able to defend it. So I just thank you for putting that out there.
Yeah. And then last thing, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and then do us a favor here. Drop us a comment. What do you think about, first of all, this series? Hopefully you like the information. We're going to do more episodes. Is there stuff you want us to add, do less of, do more of? Let us know. And then most importantly, what do you think about Mike Jacobs as a candidate for this UAB football position? What are the pros? What are the cons? And where does he rank on your personal list? With all that being said, I had an incredibly awesome time on this show. I hope y'all soaked up every moment of it, enjoyed it. We appreciate y'all. Keep on hitting us up. If you're hearing stuff, let us know. And I guess with that being said, unless y'all have anything else to say, I'll close this out. Y'all good?
Well, I see John in a little bit. We have practice. Nora's on my team. We start our quest. I'm like the Mike Jacobs of
Let's
7U
go.
basketball, football. So yeah, we start our quest to the championship at 6 o'clock. So I see John there.
That's awesome. Wait, we appreciate it, all of y'all. Y'all have a tremendous rest of your week. And as always, go Blazers.